Hi, welcome, Ann Sage.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks. Is it okay to call you Anessa?
Of course, yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
So I'm with author Ann Sage, but her first name is Anessa. Jump in and tell us about your genre, your work, a little bit
Yeah.
about your books, and then I'll probably have more questions from there.
Okay, sounds good. So Anne Sage, pen name. I took the pen name before the last name actually became my real name. I took my boyfriend at the time, his last name early, but now we're married. So it's a moot point to do the pen name. But we're at Anne Sage. I write a lot of YA, mostly YA now. I started with an NA and then just kind of progressed into the YA world. Pretty much all fantasy or paranormal mystery. I did try to throw in a sci-fi in there, but it had fantasy in it also. So fantasy is my jam, I guess. To date, I have 15 books out so far. I just released one of my standalones fairly recently, and I'm working on finishing up an 8-book series now by the end
Wow,
of the
8 books.
year. Yeah,
That's
it's
a lot.
exciting. It's
That is
exciting. Yeah,
exciting.
it's been a whirlwind for sure.
Yeah, we have such similar things. So yeah, I started writing new adult as well, and then very quickly jumped over to YA fantasy. So we have very similar stories. We
Yeah.
have about the same number of books published too.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, it's something about YA fantasy. It's just, I read it all the time too.
Oh, I know.
I'm
Yeah,
like 40 years old. I read it
I
constantly.
know. I'm such a junkie. I'm going to this like adult author event at my local library, and I'm like, well, can I bring my YA books? Adults read those too,
I
right?
know.
I'm an adult
Whenever,
author, but
well,
I also write
exactly. At
YA.
the bookstore, I always just like hightail it to the young adult section. And I'm like, it's me and just like younger people. I'm like, that's okay. I look like your mom. That's fine.
Yeah, I could be buying for my teenager, right?
Yeah. Let's pretend I have a teenager.
But no, I saw that like the biggest group of readers of that YA fantasy genre is actually women between like 55 and 65 years old.
I actually heard that too. Most of my readers are over 45, 50 and plus, pretty much
Right.
almost all of them. So it's been interesting to find that out.
Yeah, and I couldn't believe it. Like what I would have thought was my most like YA book. Like my mother-in-law loved that one the best. And I was like, okay, well, this is a thing. And I'm glad
Yeah.
when I get that old, I'll probably still be reading
No, I
YA.
know. And like same. And I just remember myself reading Twilight. So I'm like, okay, I get it. Like I was old enough not to read that anymore. But I'm trying
Yeah,
to remember what I read when I was a teenager, but it was just books they give you in school, I guess.
yeah, I got into YA fantasy by reading The Crystal Cave by Mary Stewart. Have you read that one?
Yes, yes, yeah. I'm trying to remember how did I get into YA? When did that craze start? I think I actually started with some indie authors as well, like Chandela Vaughn and all of those, and that like really solidified the YA for me recently. But trying to, yeah, I think when I was a teenager, I was reading more adult books, and now it's switched.
Well, maybe when you're a teenager, you're trying to figure out the adult world. Now that we're adults, we're like, yeah, it's not that great.
Always, yeah, you always want what you don't have. You're like, I want to grow up, and now you're like, I wish I never grew up.
Okay, so I need to dig a little deeper. I don't know where you want to start with this whole 15 book thing, but I need to know more characters, storylines, type.
Okay, yeah. So the first, let's go with the fantasy, because the first book I ever published was like a nonfiction for bloggers. And I mean, I count it as a book, but it's not part of the current repertoire. So the first book that I published was Etherborn, and it was a 4-book series, I guess you could, slightly bigger than the trilogy in a way. And that was the NA book. But it's still read like YA. So I think even then I was writing YA with slightly older characters. So I just like the topic of the YA. Etherborn dealt with that standard chosen one trope. So I had that going on. The girl in it, Ruby Black, she was kind of coming of age in a way also, or just getting to know herself. So she's a very shy girl and kind of developed these powers, of course, met a boy. love story, entered the YA, NA romance in there. And it kind of became almost, it started as an urban fantasy and became very epic, because I tend to do that with all of my books, where it starts urban fantasy or small town fantasy, and then all of a sudden you've got all these realms and just epic battles and creatures and the whole thing. And for some reason I can't get away from that. Even in my standalone, I tried to throw that in there. So that was Etherborn. After Etherborn, I wrote Cortega, which is the sci-fi fantasy mashup. That is the biggest book I have to date. And that was a crazy ride. I don't remember doing that much research for a book before. Like, I was researching the Dyson sphere and all these like different scientific theories and inventing new like races and planets and all this stuff. And it was a thrilling adventure to write that book. I think that one's my most adventurous baby so far, I should say, because such a different kind of aspect of book to write for me. And Sid was a different character. Sid was basically a complete loner, where she had no interaction with other people until she turned about 16, because she just was stuck on a spaceship orbiting this one planet. So again, there's in that one too, coming of age, a huge YA kind of trend and genre kind of bending theme, but that's a coming of age theme for her, where she discovers herself, her powers, she saves an entire race, she unites a planet. So small story turned epic as always. And then I moved into Shadowhurst, and I've been living in Shadowhurst for the most part. That's the 8-book series. Very witchy, starts off in a small town, and then we have a few other realms thrown in just for fun. But that one is more of a paranormal mystery. There's murders to solve, and there's adventures to be had for our little witch.
Yeah, that one's sort of like a YA paranormal cozy mystery feel.
It really kind of is. Yeah, it definitely is. There's with just a bit more description of the murders than the cozy would allow. Although I am getting into cozy mysteries next, so we'll see how that goes.
YA cozy mysteries?
No, actually, I think paranormal women's fiction. Why not give it a try? We'll see. It'll probably be YA in the end when I'm done writing it.
Well, I have kind of been confused by YA mysteries, because I guess in YA you can have murders and dead people, but yeah, I tend to be light on the murder side. Usually, okay, if you're murdering someone, then you're probably evil, or at least bad in some way, yes. Right? So
yeah. Well, you can kind of like have it off screen too. Like, it doesn't have to be like, and you can just be like, oh, that person, we're solving that murder, and not actually describe anything.
Okay.
I think like for me, YA mystery is more like the Inheritance games, like that truly devious, that where there's like a true like mystery to be solved. And I think what I wrote, like with Shadowhurst at least, is again a mashup, more like urban fantasy / paranormal mystery, because the mystery is not like the driving force of the books.
Oh, right. Fun.
So it's like more the hero's journey, really.
Right. And so to go back from your first book to your first Etherverse, do we get to know what type of powers the main character has? Do we know what kind of being or creature she is?
In Etherborn?
That's the mystery.
in Etherborn or in Shadowhurst?
Etherborn, sorry, yeah.
In Etherborn. So we do get to know in the first book, we get to know what powers she has, but we don't really find out like who she is and where those powers come from until like book 2, and then in book 3. Where we kind of meet like the dad, which is strange. I don't know. There's a dad situation in Shadowhurst as well, so I don't know why that's a thing for me. But my dad is not a paranormal creature of any sort.
So. Are you sure?
I mean, I should really check.
You're only in book 2 of your life, right?
Really, yeah, it is true. I mean, I keep writing about it. It stems from somewhere.
Yeah, I have a character who doesn't know who her father is as well. She knows he's at least of a witch line, but she doesn't know anything else. So
yeah, I don't know why it is that the dad always just like, when it's like a female character, for some reason the dad, even in the things that River hides, I just realized for me it's well, spoilers, but the dad is a problem. For some reason. Wow, my poor father, if he ever reads.
I don't know. My dad, I mean, my mom is important to me, but my dad is important to me too.
Me
So maybe
too.
that, like, bring your dad into your,
Yeah. And I think I was such a daddy's girl growing up. Maybe that's it.
maybe it, yeah. My mom was
So
the one, she worked nights, so my dad used to cook for us. So maybe that was it. I was
maybe
more,
that was it. So now we're just making them all evil in our books. But
I know, to back up, my dad in my book wasn't evil. So
oh yeah, see now I'm a terrible daughter, I guess.
oh no, I did that to my mom though. My mom wanted to be in one of my books. So then I put her in there. It's sort of a central character, but then she got killed off.
Oh my God, yeah, I did that with somebody too. I had a friend who just kept asking to be in one of my books, so I put him in there and killed him on the next page.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like someone asking me to do that made me want to be sort of like,
Yeah,
a
because
little
you're like,
evil.
well, technically, I did what you asked.
Yes, I did,
You
but
didn't
you died.
specify that you
Sorry.
did not want to be dismembered. You have to sign a contract next time if you want to be in my books.
Oh my god, is her name actually in there? She knows it's her.
The friend, yeah, I told him, yeah.
Okay.
I'm like,
Okay.
well, you really? I'm like, there you are. You're right here. It's your real name, and that was just the first name. But he was pretty excited. So I'm like, wow.
Well, sometimes when characters get killed off, they're more memorable than the characters that just
That
make it.
is true. Yeah, that I think he was the pass away character, but I'm sure to him that was like, I think he still talks about it. And I'm like, yes, I killed you in the book. Wonderful.
Fun. That's good. So talk to me about your newest 8-book series. Where are you, and how my longest series is 4 plus a prequel right now. How is that working for you? And did you have 8 books planned from the beginning, or has it just grown over time?
I had 4 books planned at the beginning, and now the 8th will be the final. And I do have a prequel novella, which is like 48,000 words, so it's almost a novel. I don't know why I can't just wrap my mind around writing short, but it's been, I don't know, it's just been growing on its own, and I keep trying to kind of put it down and finish it off. Even now, as I'm writing the 8th book, I find myself stalling because I don't want it to end. It's been such a big portion of my whole writing career. And I did write the Things the River Hides kind of in between there, but that was a standalone, so not the same kind of long time period went by. But it's been interesting. I did have the 4 books planned. The arc was planned for 4 books, and it just kept growing and growing. And then when I wrote the 4th book, I just realized, wow, okay, there's no way I can wrap up this story at all. And that happened again after the 5th and the 6th and the 7th. And now I think I'm finally trying to write the 8th, and I'm sure I could come up with a 9th and the 10th. But I think it's getting to that point, when you have like a TV series and you're just like, end it on a high note.
Yes, I know. I always think of that too, because there's several series that I've really loved, but then I will go back and watch like 80% of the seasons, and I'm like, yeah, I don't really need to watch the last 2 seasons. Or
yeah, it's always, yeah, you always think that they're always like kind of dwindling, and I'm like, I don't want it to get to that point where I'm just like grasping at straws to have ideas. And so I'm just trying to like make this book kind of big and just have the adventure really large and finalize it finally. I still don't know how it's going to end exactly, so
but that's the fun part too. Like if I have everything planned out, like it's not as fun for me to write it.
Yeah,
like that as an author, but I'm like, oh, I'm just writing this. I already know what's going to happen. It's not that fun. But if I like leave something that I'm like still deciding about or still trying to figure out, then I enjoy writing it more.
Yeah. I say I'm like a huge, I don't know where I am. I am a huge plotter. I will plot everything, and I will never follow that plot. Like I always, I love the idea that I plotted everything out, but then I'll sit down to write it. I already replotted this book like 5 times as I was writing it. And just this morning before we got to talking, I changed like 4 more chapters, just being like, well, no, I want to go this way now.
Yeah, that wasn't speaking to me. We'll just go this way.
Yeah, we'll just go, or like something will happen and you're like, oh, well, that would be exciting because now this, and it just spurs like all these other things too. It's just like book 4 was for me. Like 4 more books grew out of it. So
yeah, it is really hard to let go of those books though. Like I really miss my characters and miss like forming new stories or new things for them.
Yeah, when you get they're like almost like family members, especially if you have like swag and art drawn of them. You know exactly what they look like. Like I'll just be wearing like a t-shirt with swag from the the books, and I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm there. I'm in Shadowhurst. My husband is like, that's not a real place.
It's real in my head, right?
Yeah, I'm like, you watch yourself. I can change the keys. Get those locks changed off in no time. Yeah, it's hard to let them go for sure. I know we
Yeah,
have.
I did do a spin-off series. So I have
Oh,
this urban fantasy series, the Kingdom Journals. It's a complete series, but then I had kind of a one-off that was supposed to be just a short story for a newsletter, and I put her character in the finale of that series, and then I was like, she could have her series, and
yes.
they could continue in her series.
Yeah, see, I like that. I just sent out a newsletter to my readers, and I said, I don't know if I'm ready to leave, but there might be a spin-off. And I'm just gonna let them guess with who. I have 4 point of view, so they can, and it could be either one of those or somebody completely different, so they can go wild.
Interesting. So 4 point of views in different books or in the same book?
In the same books. Originally, Shadowhurst started with 1 point of view, with Billy's point of view, the main character. And around book 3, I introduced River, who was her love interest. And then book 4, we got 2 more point of views added, Savannah and Logan. And because the book now, for the most part, for the last 3 has been taking place in two different realms, it makes sense to kind of split the couples up in a way.
Okay.
So
Neat.
that
And
was
so you do them first person? Do you do like every other
first
chapter?
person. First person, and honestly, the way like I do them is just whatever the chapter calls for. The majority will still probably be in Billy's point of view for the most part, because she's just kind of like the driving main character. But I switch them out, and it's interesting. It's been kind of weird to write 4 different people. I feel like I have 4 different personalities, and one of them is British. And it's just been like so interesting to kind of try to jump from head to head. I thought I wanted to write all of 1 point of view and then another and just compile it all together, but I'm a very linear writer, so I couldn't do it. So it's been kind of difficult at times to jump from head to head and describe the story that way, especially when they take place in 2 different places as well. And there's 2 different, basically each book has 2 different arcs, because these couples have different arcs of their own within the same arc of the story. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. That's very cool to write. Yeah.
It does require plotting though. So I don't think I could pants something like that.
Yeah, no, you can't pants that, because that takes a lot of thought.
Yeah, and it gets confusing to kind of try to figure out like how one realm where they don't communicate to each other leads and spurns different things in another realm. Like how do they feed off each other and how they come together? And it's been fun.
From a reader's point of view, that sounds amazing too.
Yeah, it's been, I think when I introduced it, the second couple, people really responded to it. It's like I got a ton of emails being like, oh, I'm so glad we got her, because the girls, Savannah, and I mean, I'm not giving this away. And even if I am, it's okay. It's still interesting to read. But Savannah is kind of like a redeeming arc, because she was almost an arch nemesis of Billy in the first book. So it was an interesting way to kind of put her in there and have her have her own say.
Well, super fun. Yeah, I had a character that I couldn't make evil either. And I don't know if this happened for you, but one of my characters was supposed to be working with the bad guys. And then I liked him so much, I couldn't have him be bad in the end.
You just have these characters. Sometimes when I read books too, when they have that happen, and I'm like, I wonder if that's what happened here. Like the author just couldn't.
Yeah, because I had him acting so nicely, but he was supposed to be acting fake, right? He was supposed to be lying to everyone. But then I was like, oh, I can't do that to him.
Yeah. He's just a good guy. Yeah, so that was, and I didn't plan for Savannah to have like any kind of redeeming qualities whatsoever, but there she is.
Nice. And you said you just wrote a standalone. Tell me more about that one.
Yeah, I wrote the Things the River Hides. That one was very different. from my other books. That one was very steeped in mythology. Ton of research went into it. I had like a lot of text translated from like 3 different languages
Wow.
to kind of form. It's a very obscure myth. It's a popular holiday in Eastern European lands, but it's kind of a spring, like a coming of spring holiday, and I always wondered why it was called a certain way and what the story behind it was. And as I started kind of digging and getting these texts translated, I realized like that there was like a goddess of winter. That's the background of that. And in some cultures, she actually is known as the goddess of death because winter kills all things. And so the imagery of snow and winter and ice and things slowly dying and then being reborn, that whole concept really stuck in my mind. And so I based an entire book on that concept, but from the point of view of a young girl who can foretell people's death when she touches them. And she doesn't know how she got this ability. She had surgery when she was a kid and it just started. And that's like the story, and this was in the blurb, so I'm not giving anything away. I always try not to. I'm like terrible at it. The worst spoil sport. But she works at her mother's morgue in a small town. She is very much an outcast because other people know that she can do this, and of course they fear her. And so she doesn't have any friends except her mom. And she's usually in the morgue, which is very depressing and creepy. But one day a body arrives and she sees something's amiss and something's not right about this body. And it's very closely followed by the arrival of another body who is a boy and he's very much alive. And he's convinced that his friend's death was not accidental. And so she gets wrapped up in trying to figure out what happened to his friend. And then that opens a whole can of worms.
Oh, neat. That sounds very cool.
It
I
was
love that.
fun. Yeah, that one was really fun. I think that what started was the myth of Marzano, which is the goddess of winter and death. And then I also just pictured a town where something happened environmentally, and the one river that they have turned blood red. So yeah, so that was the image of like Snow White and blood red river just kind of kept coming back, and I'm like, I got to do something with this.
Right. Is that set in contemporary time?
It is set in contemporary times, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so but it goes back, I guess, ages to this myth. So
right, that's really neat. Yeah, it's funny. We must be twinning in our dual lives, because I just wrote a standalone mythology book too, but it's Aztec mythology. So like you said, I did so much research for this book, but in it's historical fantasy. So I set it in the time of the Aztecs. And the character sounds very much like your character. She was an outcast because she had a birthmark, and the people believed the mark was the mark of the god of death or darkness.
Oh my God.
Or Lord of, he was called God or Lord of Darkness. I can't even pronounce the name. I wish I could. I need to like really study it and pronounce the name correctly. But so she was believed to be marked by him, and so they go to a shaman, and the shaman's like, oh, you have to bring her back to me when she's 3 years old so that she won't turn evil, basically. And so her parents, but she also has gifts of clairvoyant powers. So she can feel other people's feelings and know their futures. So she goes to this shaman, and he is supposed to train her. But she's very much an outcast too. Like she tries at one point to go to school and fit in society, but she's like weird and lanky, and she has different color eyes, and people are scared of her, like her friends, and even the parents and the adults were scared of her, even though she covered up her marks. So it sounds very, very similar.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, you're right. We definitely are twinning. I think we have like the same kind of path or interested in the same. That's awesome. I love that.
Super fun.
Yeah.
So you're wrapping up your 8-book series.
Yes.
And do you know what? And yes, very sad. But you said there might be a spinoff, so that's a little bit of what may come next for you.
Yep.
Do you know when you're going to release this last book?
So I was originally looking at sometime in the fall, and I'm still looking for between late fall and obviously before Christmas. So this year,
Okay.
very soon. So at some point, I'm just trying to figure out. I've just hit the midpoint, and I've had to change some things around. So I don't want to rush it because it is the last one. So I just want to make sure it's perfect. So I'm giving myself that leeway. I don't have the exact release date yet. But it's going to be before Christmas. And I know for sure that in the first couple weeks of January, I'm going to have this cozy mystery releasing. So
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that one.
yeah, I've been plotting that one while writing this one. So
You must write really fast, and I don't know how quick your editing process is, but I'm not sure I could be at a midpoint of the story and try to release it before Christmas.
I write, yeah, I don't know if I write clean. I edit as I write.
Okay.
So it makes it easier. I find that a lot easier when it's fresh in my mind. I can edit, like I'll write a few chapters in a day when I'm at the deadline, and the next day I'll edit them before I write again. So, and I've just started dictating, which has been interesting.
Oh, fun.
So some of this book is dictated, and that's been just because a new baby, I'm walking on a lot of walks, so I might as well dictate while I do that.
I have thought about that so many times, especially if I have like going to meetings in the car, and
Yes.
like this is
Driving and
my time.
dictating is great. Yeah, you should try it. It's really
Right.
all I do is record on my phone, and then I upload it to like Otter or another dictation software that just
Right.
transcribes it all.
I need to jump into that probably.
Yeah, it's fun. It's very awkward at first, especially if people are walking by you. And you're talking about magic and stuff.
Right. Yeah, they might
like what? No, she's definitely not on the phone.
Maybe we need to take her to the homeless shelter.
Yeah, it gets like really, really weird, but you get used to it. Now I just like dictate everywhere.
Well, and everybody talks on their phone all the time anyway. So.
Yeah, okay. I'm talking about magic. That's so much more interesting. What else am I going to talk about? The weather? You're welcome for a sneak peek.
Yeah, buy my book, you get the ending.
Yeah, buy my book, you can read it. Imagine.
So have you ever thought about writing in third person?
Yeah, I've written some in third person. I'm trying to think. I think Etherborn I wrote originally in third person. Yeah, so that was, I might write the cozy mystery in third person. Only because there's going to be a fun little POV, which I won't say what it is, but it's not human. And so a third person would be great.
Yes, I can see that now.
Yeah. And not like a full POV, but just a few little chapters. I think it would be good if without mixing those up. I don't know what it is. I think something about YA in first person just really like works for me, at least. I can really get into the head of the character, especially when I have multiple POVs.
Right. I've only done first person too, and part of me, I was kind of challenging myself. I wrote a short story, and my husband was like, "Yeah, just go back to the other thing."
Yeah, it is tough, especially when you think about like, do I write it like past present, or like, because the things that were revised was past present, that was different. Like I wasn't sure how that was going to work out, but somehow you get used to it. But yeah, third person was it was different. I think I did definitely start that way because I think when I first started writing, I just assumed that you were mostly supposed to write in third person because that's what I remember from school. So it was, like an interesting experiment. But I think first person for YA really works a lot.
I like it. I enjoy
Yeah,
it.
me too.
I enjoy that closeness that you feel with knowing what the character's thinking or they're struggling with.
Yes. Yeah, and I think for a book like YA books, especially when a lot of it is like so much about personal experience, I think first person just works. Like the reason I'd want to do the cozy mystery is third person because I just think if you're writing something more quirky, third person gives you a bit more leeway with that. Because like obviously like I wouldn't think I'm being quirky because that's just who I am. But from a third person perspective, I can describe it and it's more like awkward and
Oh, neat.
So I think that would work, but we'll see.
All of that sounds super fun. I'm running to each and every one of your series right after this podcast.
Same, right? I'm excited to read that other book that we have such a like parallel with.
Right.
That'll be really fun.
Super fun. Well, tell everyone where we can find you.
Yeah, so all my information is on my website, ansage.ca. You'll find my social media links there. I mostly hang out, used to be Instagram, now I'm mostly on Facebook. I have tried to hang out on TikTok, so maybe somebody can get me back on there because I just end up watching cat videos. So
Cat videos are very fun and entertaining.
yes, they really, and they, 2 hours until like 3 a.m. You're like, wow, that's a lot of cats. I need to go to bed. But yeah, my website has all my links. My books are pretty much all available wide, except that first series, Etherborn, that's Amazon exclusive, but everything else is all over, everywhere where books are sold.
Well, super fun. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for doing this. This was exciting.
And best of luck with the end of your series, and can't wait to see what the spinoff may be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to read your spin-off now too. So that'll be very nice. I need new books too. So
yes, we'll have to follow up in the next couple of months and see what we're doing.
Yeah. Let's link up.
Well, thank you again. And everyone, go find Anne Sage at annesage.ca.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.